et se montrent alors déterminées pour apprendre cette langue qu'elles ne maîtrisent pas et qui leur permettra de s'insérer. Elles ont souvent des difficultés pour se concentrer, elles sont fatigables et peuvent alors ressentir une certaine frustration, voire irritabilité, et perdre un peu plus confiance en elles. Avec la patience des bénévoles qui enseignent en tête-à-tête, elles se sentent rassurées et finissent par progresser peu à peu avant d'intégrer des cours collectifs à l'extérieur. 9h. Faith, une femme nigériane, se plaint d'avoir encore quelque chose qui cogne dans la tête. Les plaintes psychosomatiques sont fréquentes chez les victimes de la traite. Sensation de fatigue, sensation de chaleur, sensation d'étouffer, sentiment d'étrangeté. Le corps exprime la souffrance qui n'a pas pu être exprimée tant qu'elles étaient dans un monde et un mode de survie. Ces femmes ont besoin qu'on prenne soin d'elles, ce qu'elles expriment par des mots jetés, des appels à l'aide, « take care of me », ce qui est la plupart du temps le signe d'un épuisement physique et psychique. 9h30. Quand Blessing, une autre jeune femme nigériane arrivée depuis seulement quelques jours, sort ce matin, l'éducatrice, pour des raisons de sécurité, lui demande où elle va. Blessing se braque. Longtemps contrôlées par les réseaux, les victimes de traite peuvent vivre certaines règles de la structure comme une nouvelle forme de contrôle, une surveillance, un manque de confiance de la part de l'équipe. Certaines se sentiront persécutées et réagiront avec agressivité. D'autres sauront faire la part des choses et trouveront leur place dans ce lieu contenant. 10h. Grace, une Nigériane au corps frêle, rencontre pour la première fois l'assistante sociale pour répondre à des questions simples. Comment tu t'appelles? Quel âge as-tu? Et pourtant, les réponses sont impossibles et viennent créer un malaise palpable, aussi palpable que ce doute sur l'âge de la jeune. Est-elle mineure? Est-elle majeure? Elle est perdue dans son identité, elle est perdue dans son histoire. La construction du récit pour sa demande d'asile prendra des mois avant qu'elle puisse s'y retrouver et faire confiance pour retracer le fil des événements entre sa mémoire marquée par des trous traumatiques et les différentes identités assignées par le réseau et par la famille. Rita, son nom de rue, Grace, sur sa demande d'asile, Adesuwa, son nom traditionnel. Et maintenant que tu es dans le foyer, comment veux-tu qu'on t'appelle? Par cette simple question, on lui demande de choisir, de se réapproprier son identité. La bataille sera plus longue pour obtenir sa véritable identité sur le plan administratif. Midi. Un peu plus tard, la maîtresse de maison signale que Mila, une jeune femme moldave, n'est pas sortie de sa chambre depuis le matin. Elle est en pleurs. Elle a tendance à s'isoler du groupe, à se replier sur elle-même. Les entretiens avec l'assistante sociale sont courts, elle ne verbalise rien. Difficile de parler quand un membre de sa propre famille est à l'origine de l'exploitation sexuelle. Elle est mutique, presque absente dans le foyer. Elle a néanmoins accepté les séances avec la socio-esthéticienne qui lui propose des massages le vendredi après-midi. Au moins là, elle n'a pas à parler, elle peut rester silencieuse. C'est important d'entendre que certaines femmes ne sont pas capables de parler et respecter leur temporalité. Lovette, 14h. Lovette est une jeune femme nigériane qui a porté plainte contre sa madame et son réseau il y a déjà plusieurs mois. L'enquête a du mal à avancer. Elle doit se rendre aujourd'hui à la brigade de répression du proxénétisme. Elle a refusé la confrontation avec sa madame de peur de se retrouver face à elle, mais elle a accepté de revoir la police pour apporter de nouveaux éléments. Faute de preuves, la proxénète sera relâchée. Pourtant, la police est convaincue par le témoignage de Lovette. 15h. L'éducatrice entend des hurlements à l'étage. C'est Precious, la jeune femme nigériane qui fait une crise d'angoisse après avoir reçu un énième appel de sa famille lui réclamant de l'argent. Elle se tape la tête contre le mur. Elle a parfois envie de mourir. Elle ne comprend pas cette famille qui ne se soucie pas d'elle, mais seulement de son argent. Cette famille qui la pousse à retourner se prostituer. Après un entretien, elle accepte l'idée de couper les contacts avec sa famille, au moins quelque temps pour penser à elle, pour ne plus se sacrifier. 16h. Fatih est une jeune femme tunisienne, exploitée par un proxénète pendant plusieurs mois en région parisienne. Elle a intégré l'appartement de semi-autonomie de l'association après avoir été régularisée au titre de l'article 316.1. Elle a commencé à travailler dans la restauration. Aujourd'hui, elle revient d'une expertise médicale qui s'est mal passée. Elle est en état de choc. Au-delà du fait que l'évocation du viol et de la prostitution reste douloureux, elle ne s'attendait pas à être victime de propos aussi insultants et humiliants de la part d'un médecin. Propos confirmés par l'interprète qui l'accompagnait. Si la procédure judiciaire peut aider certaines victimes à se reconstruire en apportant une réparation symbolique et financière, dans certains cas, par maladresse, par racisme, par manque de professionnalisme, certaines étapes de la procédure peuvent survictimiser la personne. 18 heures. Arlette est une jeune femme camerounaise qui a été victime de traite en Grèce. Elle présente un état de stress post-traumatique. Aujourd'hui, elle vient voir la psychologue avec des idées noires. Elle sent qu'elle pourrait se faire du mal, mais ça lui est égal. Elle a perdu toute estime d'elle-même, elle ne sert à rien, elle ne vaut rien. La mise à distance avec le milieu d'exploitation et la mise en sécurité physique peuvent amener certaines personnes vers une décompensation psychique. Arlette est accompagnée vers une unité de soins pour voir un psychiatre qui modifie son traitement et propose une hospitalisation que la jeune refuse. Elle préfère rentrer sur le foyer. 20 heures. Les femmes s'installent comme chaque soir pour dîner dans une ambiance détendue. La vie en collectivité peut soigner certaines blessures. Lovette, elle, n'a pas d'appétit. Elle vient de parler à sa mère qui a reçu des menaces au Nigéria, au moment même où sa proxénète avait quitté le service de police à Paris. Elle est en sécurité dans le foyer, mais sa mère est en danger. Elle se sent responsable et coupable. 21 heures. La surveillante de nuit arrive. Les transmissions se font avec l'équipe de jour. Une jeune femme lui raconte qu'elle a commencé sa formation. Une autre vient lui demander son traitement. Anxiolytique, somnifère, antidépresseur, avant de monter dans sa chambre. Le reste du groupe regarde un film avant de s'endormir. Prendre en compte les traumatismes dans la prise en charge globale permet aux victimes de TEH de s'inscrire dans un groupe, dans un contexte de sécurité affective indispensable à la résilience, une phase nécessaire pour se reconstruire et reprendre peu à peu sa place de femme. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Céline. Je vous ai fait un aperçu assez vaste de la situation en prenant une journée dans votre foyer. Merci. Je vais donner maintenant la parole à Madame Diana Nwakanma, qui est consultante pour la réintégration des victimes de retour au Nigéria. Thank you. You can speak English.
Thank you very much. One of the things I want to be focusing on here is some of the barriers that women coming back to Nigeria face when they're being reintegrated. Not some of the barriers. And the main barriers that we find include the fact that they don't have, the skill level is quite low, literacy, basic education is lacking, limited opportunities, physical health issues, special needs, disabilities, extremely limited, traumatic mental health challenges that require intervention. And these are things that they're facing coming back. And what we find is that the solutions to these need to be put in a program that addresses these issues. And the bigger risk as well is the fact that these are huge numbers of people being returned who are undeveloped human potential and highly detrimental to the community if not giving skills to pull them out of their vulnerable states, to prevent them from being, vulnerable to crime, from lost productivity, and also the concerns of the burdens of poor mental health and poor physical health. So the need is that there needs to be an adequate reintegration program that meets both the recovery and the skills development needs of these survivors. And the recovery has to be trauma sensitive. What you find in Nigeria, what I've observed is that there's not a lot of focus on trauma recovery. There's more skills development without really addressing the issues that have to do with the traumas that they face, the post-traumatic stress. And because this is not being properly addressed, not holistically addressed, you find there's a gap in even them being able to reintegrate, even when you do try to teach them new skills. And just like my colleague was saying, there's a learning curve when they have been through trauma. Their ability to retain information, their ability to learn is impaired. So if you're not addressing those issues and you're just putting them into learning a skill or trying to get them, give them seed money and say start a business, and you haven't addressed the larger underlying mental health issues that they're facing, then what you find is that there is not a sustainable, successful reintegration. They struggle. They struggle to continue to be able to manage their businesses. They struggle to manage daily lives. They struggle with parenting. They struggle just generally in all their outcomes. So what is needed is this trauma-sensitive recovery and support, a comprehensive survivor-centered skills development program that addresses the multifaceted skills of the people. It's not about just saying to them, come and learn this skill because it's available to be learned, but it's taking into consideration what are their aptitudes, what are the things that they can do. Some people might come and have zero literacy and numeracy, they can't read, they can't write. Some might come and they can read and write. You're not going to provide the same services for both. You have to tailor it to what they need. And you also have to provide specialized vocational technical training for those who you do see have an aptitude to go further. So like a progressive program that helps them develop skills over time. And then employment readiness skills, being able to prepare them for the world of work, bearing in mind the things that they've experienced prior to coming back. They are not, most of them have not held regular jobs that you would consider jobs that give dignity. And so how do you prepare them to be in a work environment? It's not enough to just say, learn the skill and go and we'll give you an internship. How have they been prepared for such an internship? How have they been prepared for employment? And these are some of the barriers, some of the things that consistently come up with them. And another thing that is a huge gap is the fact that programs and services are lacking for survivors and their children and their dependents 0 to 18. You find programs tailored to the women or the man, and mostly women, of course, because they're the most disproportionately affected, but the children are largely left behind. Even when they come back with them, the focus is on the mothers or the women, not really programs that are holistic for mothers and children that foster the support that is required. And this is why you find a lot of women are resistant to going back home, because the question is begged, what are they going home to? And if you're not providing services and programs that address the short, medium, and long-term needs of these survivors or these victims of trafficking, then you have no incentive for them to want to come home. But when there are programs such as this being developed or being implemented, then they're more incentivized, they're more interested in coming home because there's something for them to come to. And I'm one of the people that believe that when there is something to come to, the best place for them to be is home, because it's home for them. And because it's a place where they are not othered. They're not the migrants, they're not the refugee, they're not the victim trafficking, they're just home. So if you're not providing services for them or programs that can incentivize them to come home, then they have they're not enthusiastic about the idea of coming back. And another thing is investing in building capacity and skills alongside psychosocial recovery and rehabilitation. It promotes productivity, it promotes well-being, it reduces criminality and vulnerability, and it's just very good business for any economy, for any community, for anywhere. Investing in your people, it's always good business for a community. And I think the solution is having a program, a comprehensive program model that addresses these issues. One of the things that I'm trying to do over the next year is implement a program that does just that. It's a 3-stage program model that I'll hopefully be partnering with an organization in Canada who has been doing this model for over 30 years across Europe, North America, and also in Asia. But unfortunately, they don't have a model like this in Africa. But I think that Nigeria is very ripe for a model like this that takes into account the holistic long-term recovery and skills development of these survivors, because what you find mostly is that programs are not invested really in long terms. They're more process-oriented rather than outcomes-oriented. So they bring the survivor or a person who's been trafficked who comes back home, and the process is, okay, learn a skill, or stay in the shelter and learn how to make hair or learn how to sew, which is perfectly fine, but there's no outcome of what happens afterwards. So you've gone through this program, now you have the skill to, say, make a dress. then what is the next thing for you? What am I looking for you to be at the end of this process? What's the outcome? And the outcome, in my opinion, is it should be a person who is able to sustain themselves and their families without having to rely on outside help, community, and being able to be self-sustaining economically and socially, have a network that they can contribute, being able to contribute meaningfully to their communities. And if you think about it in that outcome, when you have a program, you can design it with the idea that this is where you're aiming for, so that at the end of this time that they've passed through a program, this is what they should be, or they should be well on their way to being. And I believe that the more programs like this are funded and people come together to actually put such programs in place, the more you'll see people more willing to come back home and do more in their communities, to return home and actually have something waiting for them that they can do, they can join and they can be part of. And the reason why I was very incentivized to partner with this and bring this model is because it is a long-term model. It's a minimum of 3 years for a program participant, but it's not an institutionalized model where they're in like some kind of institution and they have to go through, it's almost like they're in another form of detention, sometimes it seems, but they're in a housing model where the plan is to reintegrate them, to have a true-to-life model where from day one, they're outcomes-based. They're learning how to live as part of members of the society. They're learning how to develop support and parenting skills, because it's a program model that involves mothers and their children. So children are very much part of the model and not just an afterthought. So it's very holistic. It focuses on their recovery and skills development, starting with the minimum skills needed, which is just basic reading, writing, counting, numeracy, and then taking it progressively as time goes on. And it's a model that lasts up to 7 years, or as needed for a program participant or for a survivor. And it's not in an environment where they are, again, in an institution, but it's in a housing model where they're in a home. It's residential. So at every stage through the program, they're actually housed, they're homed, and then they can work on their recovery. They can commit to it because the issues of housing, of taking care of their children, of learning, so all those things are kind of taken care of in the model. And because Nigeria is a country where there's not really a social welfare system, this model, as part of its mandate, creates its own welfare system within the program so that the participants are taken care of financially. So they get their training grants throughout the duration. They get scholarships for those who display aptitudes for education and they want to go further with it. So it's very survivor-centered, very holistic, and I think it's time to have such program models in Nigeria. And it's also very replicable. So the goal is, over time, to have such models across the country, in different cities of Nigeria where the needs are great. And also the high social return of investment, because you're empowering women, and then you're also breaking the cycle that their children have to face with being born into that disempowered state and not being able to come out of it. So it's the long-term outcomes and impact of such a model, I think, cannot even be overemphasized. And such a model might be costly, but then you think about the cost of not having such a model. What are the costs on government? What are the costs in the host countries, the destination countries? And it's way more than what you would put into funding and spearheading and implementing a project.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. Je pense que c'est important de finir par ce point. Quel serait le coût de ne pas s'occuper du problème? Je pense que c'est une question qu'il faudrait se poser peut-être un peu plus en termes de politique publique pour lutter contre la traite des êtres humains. Focusing now on the reception and protection of victims of fraudulence, I give the floor to you.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. First, I'd like to thank the Order of Malta for the opportunity of participating in this very important discussion on sexual exploitation of women. Now, the issue of sexual exploitation has been well established by the different panels. I mean, the fact that we have limited data does not neglect the fact that we know that these numbers are huge. We're looking at data as high as 600% increase. I'm reading in, say, 2017 of women that are sexually exploited and women that are actually trafficked to Europe. I'm reading numbers like of the 600,000, 80% of them are Nigerian women, and 80% of them come from Edo State, as Professor Omorobe attested to. My work back in Nigeria, my primary cap is as an obstetrician and a gynecologist. But I also run an organization called the Women at Risk International Foundation, WARIF. And our role is to address the women when they do return, when they have been rescued by agencies such as NAPTIP. It's first important to emphasize the fact that with the large number of women that actually leave Nigeria, very few of them can or do actually return. And the statistics from NAPTIP in 2018 tell us that 1,173 cases were actually recorded as being rescued. So in the context of thousands of women leaving, that's actually a very small number. And to be able to understand why and how we can assist her when she does return, we have to understand why did she leave to begin with. We have to actually look inwards. I mean, yes, we can understand it from the trafficker's point of view. It's big business. It's $150 billion globally. And it's very low risk because the product, and I use that word deliberately because the woman's referred to as product, is a commodity that's complicit, albeit under duress, but she's a knowing, willing partner. And so his role is well established, and his role primarily is profit gaining. But why does she do it? So we're living in an environment where in her reality, in her abject poverty, she has no choice. She may not appreciate the nuances of the journey, but she does appreciate what comes at the end of the journey. She's very much aware that she is going to work in the sex trade at the destination country when she arrives. What she doesn't appreciate is the 500 miles of the desert that she has to cross from Nigeria to Libya, albeit stopping in transit countries like Niger and Algeria, where she's raped repeatedly, where she's abused repeatedly. She's under all sorts of obligations from different groups because she's now, unfortunately, in a scenario where she's now colluding with her captives and then she can't go back. Now, in her reality, she has left to improve her life. And so therefore, as I believe one of the previous panelists said, her family are dependent on her. They don't care what happens to her on the journey. As far as they're concerned, you need to get there, start making money, and send it home. And then there's the shame. She started the journey having this idea. The idea fast turns into this horrific story, and she's trapped, and she can't get out. So she finally gets to Libya, for instance, and perhaps the few that can cross the dangerous Mediterranean Sea do get to France and Italy. And then she's trapped in this vicious cycle of abuse yet again. It's at this point in time that she's probably undergone the oaths that we've heard of. And so now psychologically, she's now also under the bondage of this shaman, we call them babalawos, back home, back in Nigeria, who has now warned her, threatened her, and she's fully under the belief that everything this man has said to her will come to pass. And she's stuck in this country, and she's trying to make ends meet, and then perhaps she's picked up, she's sent to one of these wonderful shelters, and then she's deported home. And then we're home waiting to receive her. So she's not, firstly, the woman that you would imagine, happy, relieved, kissing the ground that she's back in Nigeria. She's ashamed, she's broken. She has tremendous amount of physical and emotional trauma that has happened to her. But more importantly, she doesn't want to come back. She is not happy to be back. Because the primary reason why she left to begin with remains. And she has not come back with that pot of gold. She's been rescued, yes, but she's come back empty-handed after being physically abused, emotionally abused, with no financial means, very little skills, and nothing else. So WARIF, the organization that I run, was established to address the rape and sexual violence in Nigeria. And sexual exploitation happens to be a part of this. We're dealing with this issue in a country where 1 in 4 girls before age 18 would have had one violent sexual encounter. 70% of these girls would have had more than one. Only 5% ever receive any care or assistance. And even when they do, very few of them actually had any follow-up with the assistance that they've been offered. So this is the stage that she leaves, and this is the stage that she comes back to. So we address these issues by implementing impactful initiatives that we're able to measure and show that they work under the health, education, and community service pillars. And under the health pillar, we run a rape crisis center. And at the WARIF Center, which is located in Lagos State, which is one of the 36 states of Nigeria, we actually offer a lot of the services that you mentioned, Diana. The very first thing that we establish is, of course, medical intervention. And during that period, we run our HIV tests, we run our, obviously, other sexually transmitted diseases, we address those as and when we find them, and then we start to look at her, again, from an emotional point of view. The emotional trauma that Céline mentioned, all very real. This lady comes with immediate issues of depression, anxiety, panic attacks. She's fearful for her life. She's fearful for the life of her family because she has broken the oath, albeit not her fault because she was picked up and rescued. And she's at a point in time where now she's depressed because she's looking at her life and there's no end game. She's sitting in a room and being told that you're free, you're rescued, but she has nothing else to show for it. Many of these women also leave countries like France and Italy and leave families behind. Many of them already have children. Many of them have already established relationships. And so therefore they are depressed because they have left their families, albeit a family that wouldn't ordinarily have been created under normal circumstances, but in her reality, that is her family. Many of them, unfortunately, have suicidal ideation, so many of them have to be watched around the clock. And many of them, at the point where we see them, are in cases where, for instance, I have a woman who, because of her repeated sexual transmitted diseases as a result of many of her activities, can no longer have children. And so those are the issues that she's dealing with. So we have a full-time 15 qualified staff at the facility. We partnered with the Washington, D.C. Rape Crisis Center, so we were able to offer standard trauma intervention in terms of assistance. What was more critical was that we needed to work with local counselors that understood the nuances of our cultural context. Because the blood oath, for instance, that we spoke of, is a huge integral part of the therapy and a huge integral part of us addressing the treatment for her. In addition to that, we have to look at her social welfare, because you're absolutely right, Nigeria is not a welfare country. And so when she comes home, she has no welfare resources. And so we have to offer her shelters. And this is where we partner with organizations like, I'm sure Sister would tell us about the home that she's about to run. We partner with legal aid. She has no idea of her rights. She has no lawyers in hand. And then the vocational skill sets that you said. At the end of the day, the idea is not necessarily to give her a career. It's really just to empower her. We're empowering her both financially and socially, so we hope that in the future, she can make the right decisions. So for us to effectively do this, and for us to effectively address these women when they return, we have to partner with agencies in this room. And we have to understand that we can't work in silos. I can't do my job if you don't understand the context of what I'm dealing with. And therefore, we have to continue to partner and have to continue to work together so we can help that woman. And we can stop her from coming over, and we can help her when she returns. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we continue with another thing with Luc de Pulford,
Okay.
Alice Foundation.
Yes, indeed. I hope these slides are working. I've got some slides. Yeah. There we are.
Good.
So, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a privilege to be able to share with you on this critical topic. I'm going to rattle through this presentation because I know that the penalties for going over time are very severe. First, I'm director and co-founder of the Arise Foundation, which supports and delivers frontline anti-trafficking work in countries of origin, including Nigeria. And I've been very privileged to work with the Order of Malta in various capacities and on various issues. I want to use this time to offer a couple of reflections on some principles that might inform our combined efforts so as to improve care for trafficking victims in Nigeria. Friends, Nigeria has a poor reputation on the issue of human trafficking. And from my experience of working with Nigerians, many of them feel the wound of human trafficking in their nation very deeply indeed. So I think it's worth saying at the outset that yes, there are many issues to confront, but there has been progress, and I think we should acknowledge that and applaud it. These are some of the things up on the slide that Arinzi from NAPTIP had mentioned earlier. But we can't be blind to the challenges that remain. As we've heard, Nigerian counter-trafficking efforts focus disproportionately on shelter provision, and that provision is in need of improvement. But what about aftercare, which is the subject of this panel? Again, the basic point is that there isn't enough of it. Because resources are insufficient, care beyond a 6-week period is almost entirely entrusted to civil society organisations which are not funded by the government. Mental health services are few and far between, and all available services are well over capacity. And that's before you get to the complex social, cultural issues that impede the success of reintegration services that Kemi was talking about. The UN Special Rapporteur lamented the lack of resources in 2018, arguing that there is a dependence upon NGOs and CSOs which have to scramble for funding from private entities and international donors. So in short, it can be worse for returning victims than when they left. But this isn't just about the lack of money, it's about the way money is given. Now, as you've heard, anti-trafficking organisations depend on donations. This dependency restricts the ability of local organisations to respond dynamically to the local issues as they manifest. Instead, programmes tend to reflect the funding priorities of the donor agency. Next, and I know a lot of people in this room will know what I'm talking about, local organisations struggle to compete in a competitive funding environment. The increasingly professionalised and increasingly exclusive disciplines of human rights and development makes things worse. Often local organisations struggle to articulate their projects in a way that the funding community finds credible. Despite the fact that the work itself might be superb, we in the funding community lack the ability to look beyond paperwork. No wonder that the investment streams to Nigeria are regularly criticised. But much of this won't be new to you. I'm saying it again because I believe this conference presents an opportunity to take stock of where we are and what we've learned in this still very nascent contemporary anti-slavery movement, so as to sharpen our response. I believe that this is the principal reason you've drawn together this distinguished assembly, so here are a few ideas. As we've heard, there is a consensus around the need for more support of community-based interventions in Nigeria, especially around aftercare, and this stands to reason. Caring for somebody who has been trafficked is necessarily local. You cannot provide healthcare or reintegration services at a distance. Now, this complements some recent scholarship on trust and slavery. The author of the original Global Slavery Index, a guy called Professor Montai Data, appropriately named, has some soon-to-be published work which shows that there's a very significant correlation between social capital, especially trust, and prevalence of modern slavery. He found that a 1 unit increase in community trust predicts a 16% decrease in prevalence of modern slavery, 2 unit increases, a 32% decrease, and so on. So, I think that these are two useful principles to be drawn out of the last few slides that can help orientate our future work. Nigeria needs more community-based interventions, and it needs interventions that are focused on building social capital and trust between individuals and institutions. Put another way, is that the right one? No. Put another way, building trusting community partnerships is key to the success of anti-slavery endeavours in Nigeria. And this would be a central part of my answer to the question, what more can we do to stop human trafficking in Nigeria and to help people who have suffered it? Now, worldwide, who is placed to do this? Who has massive dispersion and embeddedness in communities and enjoys high level of community trust? One possible answer, which might surprise some in this assembly, is Catholic Sisters. Now, Arise is a secular charity, but we're unashamed fans of sisters, and I found that actually very few Catholics know or understand the scale or impact of the female-led movement within their church. They have unparalleled dispersion. They're in 81 countries working against human trafficking. And beyond that, they're the largest humanitarian force in the world, hundreds of thousands, more than 1 million in the field. On human trafficking, there are thousands. And if all the sisters in the world were one NGO, they'd be by far the biggest anti-slavery, anti-human trafficking NGO in the world. So I'm just going to underline and labour this point, if you'll forgive me. We did some mapping work for a tea company in Assam. Those are the blue dots of their tea gardens. And here is where sisters were in relation to those tea gardens, doing frontline work. This again is a clothing distributing company in Tirupur, and that's where sisters were. They're doing great work, but we could do much more with them with some intelligent and strategic support. So I would suggest that this is one option for those looking to develop community-based, trust-rich interventions in Nigeria. So I'm going to come to a conclusion and offer a couple of brief reflections. Trust building between institutions and individuals is difficult. It takes time and patience, and this kind of work does not fit neatly within the dominant impact agenda, with its short-term focus on numbers. This kind of impact is important, but we shouldn't repeat the mistakes of the past. Our support should be dynamic to meet the needs of the community and provided in a way that enables them to build up their networks and local resilience. And our experience at Arise would suggest that this is especially true of Nigeria. We have to think very creatively about grant giving and about how the priorities of localism and social capital can be reflected in project design and implementation. So I'm telling you all of this because no institution understands the need to see the big picture better than the Order of Malta, which has been doing this work for 900 years. Taking the long view is your forte. Taking the person-to-person approach is your forte. And I think as you stand at a new juncture on the issue of human trafficking, you are superbly well placed to leverage your broad network in a way which holds in view a broader conception of impact and prizes partnership development and trust building, and not just the short-term impact that has dominated anti-trafficking endeavours to date. Perhaps even more importantly, you're well placed to insist on individual human dignity and the spirit of unconditional, loving accompaniment that's at the heart of true charity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Human rights is very important to fight against trafficking human beings. Now we give the floor to Sister Patricia. Sister Patricia is in charge of the Bakita House, and she can speak with us about this experience.
Thank you. He who laughs last laughs best. Good afternoon. I'm here, as has been said, to represent the Bakita House. And the Bakita House is a collaborative effort of the Order of Malta and the Sisters of St. Louis. Actually, I brought a picture of the Bakita House somewhere there. And the Bakita House can accommodate about 30 women very comfortably. It also has provision for receiving women and children. And we are sharing this because I think this is the purpose of this gathering, so that we'll know if we have Nigerian women or African women that want to come back, we know where to send them. Now, for the purpose of this, in our efforts to fight human trafficking, we go a lot into prevention, and we have books for that. But rehabilitation and reintegration is also a very important aspect of our work. But for the purpose of this gathering, because my talk is to look at reception and protection of victims when they come back to Nigeria. So I will focus on that, on the reception and the protection. Now, the reception of the victims, it comes in 3 phases. The pre-phase, the first phase, usually for most of them who are in shelters abroad, the pre-phase is that they get in touch with us. And it's very necessary that if they can, they get in touch with us from their country of destination, from where they are staying in Europe and America, but it's mostly Europe we deal with, so that we can allay some of their fears, so that we can establish some relationship with them, so that when eventually they come back, we are not strangers to one another. And then the next one is the second phase of reception, is when we go to the airport. And either they are deported or they return voluntarily from some of these agencies abroad. So when they get in touch with us, that such and such people are coming, we go to the airport to go and receive them. And we go as a family because, one of the concepts that we try to instill into these women, many of them young women, is the sense of family. So that right from the word go, there is a belonging, there is a relationship. So we go to the airport, we meet them at the airport, and we bring them to our house, our safe house. Could call it either safe house or call it a shelter. So we bring them to Bakita House. And when we bring them to Bakita House, the next thing is that we have a party. Very often they come back very late, but the table would have been set for their reception. We have a party, and that party has a name. The name of the party is No Place Like Home Party. We try to reassure them that there's no place like home. Some of them are deported and they come back empty-handed. Some of them come from shelters and they come with something. But we tell them we thank God that you are home and that you have come home with your head on your shoulders, so that there is nothing. Those that come empty-handed, we tell them that material things, that's not all. That once there is life, once there is, you can make it. You can make it in Nigeria. And we try to reassure them that. So that is the second phase of the reception. Now, the third phase of the reception is a more formal way of reception. And that takes place the following day. Because after that party, and during that party, we give them some of the dishes they have been missing, some of the dishes they would like to eat. And then after that, they go to their rooms. And these rooms are very comfortable, thanks to the Order of Malta and ITV. So they have very comfortable rooms now. So the following day, we bring them to the office. That's when we have the formal reception. And the formal reception is the documentation. We begin to document, their name, their history, the field forms, shelter rules, shelter guidelines, and all that is done. Then another aspect of the formal reception is that the following day we take them to the NAPTIP office, like the NAPTIP man is here. Because NAPTIP is the government agency in the country, and they like to keep record of who comes in, who goes out, and also in case we have problem with traffickers, NAPTIP is there to help us. So that when you come into protection, you talk of NAPTIP. And NAPTIP has been assisting our shelter tremendously, especially in the area of protection, like going after the traffickers. And this helps the girls, when they come back, to have some confidence that their traffickers are not going to harm them, that the traffickers will not do much to them. So then after that, then when they come back to the house, the real rehabilitation proper begins. And in the process of rehabilitation is counseling, is when you are counseling them, then they get to know what abilities, what skills they have. And I would like to share here that even though we have been doing counseling, we've been working at this for about 20 years, but recently we have been able to have what we call the transformational approach, transforming the whole person, giving them a sense of dignity. It's not just, like just as Madame Diana was talking there, and I said to myself, well, thank God, I think the model she's proposing is a lot of what we have in our shelter, and she works very closely with us anyway. So we have this transformational approach. You counsel them, you try to reassure them, you try to give them a sense of dignity and transformation of the whole attitude, their thinking, their reorientation. Because, before they went out, we were trafficked, it was all money, 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 money. You try to tell them that money is not everything. You try to tell them that they are not commodities, that they are the children of God, created in the image and likeness of God, and as a result, they should hold themselves in dignity. They should have self-esteem. So all this takes place during the period of rehabilitation in the shelter. Then, also within the shelter, they get a lot of protection. The protection, they have legal protection. We work with lawyers, and that is why with that, the traffickers cannot harm them, cannot shake them. We also have the shelter security. We have security men in the shelter to make sure even their movements, they are going. Well, it's not like a second detention or that, because it's like it's a family, and they are very happy that they are protected and well cared for. And then another thing we go through, because of the societal and family stigmatization they have gone through, so part of their training, part of the, is to reassure them that they shouldn't be afraid. There's no stigma. And we try to, one of the basic things we do too is family reconciliation. Because unfortunately, they are trafficked by their families, some by their mothers, some by members of the family, and when they come back, they went joyfully, because when they were going, they didn't know what awaited them in the destination country. But when they think of what they have suffered, like one of them told me once when I was in Italy, he said, "Sister, our parents don't know that this money we are sent to them is blood money. They don't know what we suffer, that our blood will drain ourselves to be able to give them this money." So when they come, some of them are bitter, and it takes time, and we try to reconcile them with their families. So family reconciliation is a very important aspect. Then the reintegration. After that, during the process of this thing, the reintegration takes place. And reintegration is to insert them into the society, insert them with skills where they can live, and you give them accommodation, they get their own, like within the shelter, their stay in the shelter varies. It depends on when they are ready to move out and they can stay on their own. Even though after they have moved out of the shelter, there is still a lot of monitoring and accompanying them. So, the reintegration takes place. I can see her smiling at me. Now, I want to make two proposals. Now, one of the proposals is that from the destination countries, if we can assist the returnees so that they'll have a better future in their country of origin. There are various ways of doing that. We had a program with the Netherlands, which we call the self-return project, so that they can return safely to their countries and have a safe landing. So if you do that, that will be great. And another one that I want to suggest, that if they are to stay in the countries of destination, you can help them with documents. Italy did it. They got in touch with us in Nigeria. We went to immigration because, when they travel out, they go with fake documents. The madams, carry their documents. and before they can be properly reintegrated in their countries of destination, they have to have proper documents. So you can get in touch, an active person there, you can also link up with them, so that they get proper passports from the immigration office in Nigeria. And when they have proper passports, they can then be reintegrated into their countries of destination, and they can live in, happily. And another issue, given the role that Order of Malta plays, as Luke said here, another area I would like all of us to address, because when we talk of victims, women these days, what of demand? What of the buyers of sex? While we are preventing them in Nigeria from coming out, prevent the men here from buying the sex. Prevent them from going out. Where there is no supply, where there is no demand, there will be no supply. So in this paper, I want to thank the organizers of this conference for giving us this opportunity of countries of origin and countries of destination coming together, and this is what I see this body doing. Coming together and discussing how best to assist those victims of human trafficking who are in foreign lands, either when they are deported or they return. This conference is a classic example of the cooperation and the networking we need to achieve the results. I cannot end this presentation without expressing our profound gratitude to Michel, who connected me to the Order of Malta, and to Roman. And these are the people really. So we are very, very grateful. We thank you very much for being there for us. And may God continue to strengthen you all. And I thank entirely the Sovereign Order of Malta. Thank you and God bless.
Juste quelques interventions, ça va juste amener des sujets qu'on pourra ensuite échanger plus tard à l'ordre de Malte, où on se retrouvera juste après pour tout. Donc, est-ce que quelqu'un veut intervenir? Oui, là, ici.
Thank you very much. Actually, I have several different things to say, but I think the first thing I'll say is now I know the sister who was the one that initiated that last visit that involved Babandide, the immigration people coming. And I want to say that next week, there is going to be another one that is holding in Italy. So there is now a procedure whereby there will be papers, valid papers being issued. It's going to start in Italy. I hope it will spread, but it's with the task force, immigration, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Now, I'd like to, 7 minutes is really, really short. And I couldn't talk about our shelter, which Romain was, I was happy that Romain was able to come to a shelter that we're doing that is in the pipeline. Because it's going to help us with many of these different areas. I also couldn't talk about the fact that trauma hits you in the face when you deal with these people. And so psychosocial support is essential right from the beginning. And so I could identify with what you were saying very much, and with what you were saying, but like the other people have said, there are actually quite a few initiatives that are trying to deal with the different areas of looking after the people. And in all cases, we try to actually give them what is appropriate to them, so we don't like push them into things. And like with us on the task force, they stay in contact with us. So I think that networking with people in these areas will help. Like with WARIF, with my 2 hats on, I identify with you, that is with my Attorney General's hat and my anti-trafficking hat. So sorry. Yes. No. I have to also talk about other shelters. Because I have to mention. I know. I will give you the shelter of the First Lady is actually doing a lot, because I did not mention Betsy's shelters, and I also have to acknowledge them because in the absence of my permanent shelter, shelters around us have been helping and looking after some of these people, but I will very much appreciate this. And then my very last point is to agree with Luke on Catholic sisters, because again, I could not talk about the fact that we lean on Catholic sisters, we lean on Sister Florence, who is a member of our task force, and the religious orders and the Catholic Women's Association. They go round the whole state with us and they help us, and we look on them as our real partners. So I agree with Luke, I never saw it that way. So I think this is an exciting.
Sachez que le 15 octobre, j'en profite pour dire ça, il y a une rencontre qui est organisée à la conférence des évêques de France à 18 h le soir sur où en sommes-nous de la traite des êtres humains. Et ceux qui veulent aussi poursuivre les discussions pourront le faire dans ce cadre-là. En sortant, il y a un petit papier qui présente cette soirée. Et je voulais aussi dire, donc, je suis ici et je suis coordinatrice du collectif Ensemble contre la traite des êtres humains. Mais dans la salle, il y a plein de membres de ce collectif qui est un ensemble de 28 associations qui luttent contre la traite des êtres humains en France. Et ça, c'est important parce que cette mise en réseau, dont on a beaucoup parlé aujourd'hui, cette mise en réseau, elle permet réellement de faire des choses parce que nous avons des réseaux aussi internationaux dans chacune de nos associations. Et c'est ce croisement de tous ces réseaux-là avec toutes les institutions qui permettra, je le pense, de combattre la traite des êtres humains sur tous les terrains. Donc merci beaucoup, merci aux intervenants de cette table ronde. Je vais donner la parole maintenant à Michel Veuthey.
Yep, yeah. Merci. Merci. Non, merci. Mais avant de prendre... Non, alors, avant de prendre la parole pour essayer de faire une synthèse, je voudrais donner brièvement la parole au consul du Nigeria, Monsieur Ibrahim Danlami. S'il est dans la salle, il est bienvenu. S'il ne l'est pas, je vais faire ma petite intervention. Alors, venez, Monsieur le consul, you have the floor for 2 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. I won't take much of your time. Thank you to the Order of Malta for organizing this. It has been very useful in us sharing ideas, meeting with a large group. The embassy is already cooperating with a lot of organizations in France that are right here, IOM, the Order of Malta, the Human Trafficking Division of the Police. But the challenge I face personally is that it appears we're entering a new phase of irregular migration. We all seem to think, or most people seem to think, that human trafficking is still very prevalent. But underneath that human trafficking are people who are willing, and I think somebody has said that here, people who are willing to be trafficked, who come in here to France and try to take advantage of the system. And that's the dilemma that we as an embassy face. Some people say that we are being harsh, but we are not a law enforcement agency. But we have a duty to preserve our relations with France, to make sure that France sees us as a partner, to see us that we are not condoning people trying to take advantage of the system. This is a start. I hope we'll have more of this sort of conversation. I'm available after this to discuss with anybody. We also, I think somebody spoke about documentation over here. The embassy is very willing to provide documentation for people who don't have documents. But we also face a challenge where people who come into France under a different identity cannot be integrated into the Nigerian system again, except they go back to Nigeria. And of course, most people don't want to go back. So I'm available for comments after this on any other issue you'd like to talk about. I'm trying to respect the 2 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Excellence. Mesdames et messieurs, chers amis, merci d'abord à tous les intervenants et participants et à notre remarquable modératrice Geneviève Collat. Lors corps de Malte, comme son grand chancelier nous l'a bien rappelé d'emblée, est actif contre la traite d'êtres humains sur de nombreux terrains opérationnels et diplomatiques depuis de nombreuses années. Et nous avons certainement beaucoup à apprendre des autres acteurs gouvernementaux et de la société civile, à commencer des victimes elles-mêmes, et des organisations religieuses ou non qui viennent en aide aux victimes prises au piège, aux tromperies, aux pratiques magiques, aux viols et aux violences physiques et psychologiques. Au cours de cette matinée très dense, très riche en témoignages et en perspectives, nous avons pu faire le point, stock-taking, prendre conscience, être confrontés à l'ampleur de la tragédie que constitue, notamment en Afrique et en Europe, la traite d'êtres humains considérés comme des objets, des produits d'échange, des marchandises, et les autres formes d'esclavage contemporain face à la puissance des réseaux criminels de la traite, nationaux et transnationaux, et aux millions, voire aux milliards d'argent du sang, blood money, que régénèrent ces trafics. Plusieurs intervenants ont souligné la nécessité d'accroître la collaboration, de conclure des accords de coopération, de mettre sur pied des partenariats pour prévenir, protéger, réhabiliter, pour permettre aux victimes de sortir de la prostitution, de régulariser leur séjour en France, sans oublier l'obligation qu'ont tous les États de coordonner leurs forces de police, de coopérer entre juridictions pour poursuivre pénalement les différentes formes de la traite et donner aux victimes les moyens d'obtenir réparation pour les dommages qui leur ont été infligés. Ces échanges entre acteurs venant d'horizons nouveaux devraient contribuer à l'élaboration et au renforcement de solutions d'entraide et de coopération pour les États et pour la société civile, en vue d'une large mobilisation et d'un effort partagé qui nous permettrait d'endiguer la montée de ce fléau et d'envisager l'abolition de l'esclavage dans les prochaines années. Les instances gouvernementales, les organisations internationales, à commencer par l'OIM et l'ONU-DC, et les organisations régionales, excusez-moi, je mets l'Union européenne, si bien que vous n'êtes pas une organisation régionale, mais malgré tout, vous êtes très important sur le plan régional, et le Conseil de l'Europe est sous-régional, comme la CEDEAO, les organisations de la société civile, les ONG humanitaires et des droits de l'homme, l'économie privée, les communautés locales et les diasporas, les médias, à commencer par les radios et télévisions, comme aussi les producteurs de films, comme on l'a dit ce matin, et bien sûr les instituts de recherche qui nous hébergent ce matin, d'analyse et de formation, les écoles sont tous appelés à contribuer à ce combat. La contribution de personnalités individuelles au Nigeria, et en particulier dans l'état d'Edo, où la situation est préoccupante, a été justement relevée. Le témoignage de la Congrégation des Sœurs de Saint-Louis à Lagos nous a rappelé le rôle unique que jouent les dirigeants spirituels et les organisations confessionnelles dans les pays d'origine, de transit et de destination des victimes de la traite, pour sensibiliser et contribuer à mobiliser tous les acteurs. C'est non seulement les traités internationaux qui doivent être appliqués et mis en œuvre, en particulier le protocole de Palerme de 2000 et la Convention de 2005 du Conseil de l'Europe, mais aussi les valeurs universelles d'humanité et de solidarité, de respect de la vie et de dignité de la personne qui nous guideront pour atteindre cet objectif. C'est un vaste effort de formation et d'information, à commencer par la formation des professionnels qui peuvent avoir à connaître de la traite, que nous devons entreprendre à tous les niveaux pour adapter nos efforts aux besoins croissants des victimes et de leurs familles et entourages, pour changer les mentalités dans les communautés touchées, pour rendre aux victimes une pensée libre, pour les aider à se développer économiquement, pour faire cesser l'impunité des trafiquants, pour sortir ces femmes du jugement moral, du stigma de la prostitution et du racisme, et de renverser le fardeau de la honte. Les femmes aux clients de la prostitution, quoique cette pénalisation des clients ne fasse pas l'unanimité, mais enfin, les femmes qui se racontent doivent être respectées dans leur dignité, quelle que soit leur race, leur nationalité, leur statut social. C'est un combat qui s'inscrit dans la durée, à travers les frontières, qui requiert une mobilisation multidimensionnelle de ressources humaines, financières et économiques, ainsi qu'une collaboration entre acteurs publics et privés, entre différents gouvernements, à commencer par la France et le Nigéria, entre différents ministères, entre fondations privées et organisations de la société civile, entre avocats, magistrats, médecins, psychologues et religieux. Il faut en effet une approche interdisciplinaire de différents acteurs pour saisir la problématique, s'adapter aux conditions locales, identifier les victimes, les protéger, les prendre en charge, leur permettre de sortir des réseaux, les mettre à l'abri, prendre le temps de les aider à se reconstruire médicalement, psychologiquement et professionnellement, à se réintégrer dans les communautés d'accueil ou d'origine, à les protéger durablement, notamment dans des programmes de réinsertion professionnelle, les amener à être indépendants, leur redonner un sens de dignité, qu'elles sont vraiment des enfants de Dieu, de pouvoir subvenir à leurs besoins et à ceux de leur famille, et à leur éviter de retomber dans les pièges de l'esclavage. Et pour cela, comme le disait Luc, de recréer la confiance au sein des communautés locales et nationales. Et maintenant, permettez-moi de dire res non verba. Des paroles, passons des paroles à l'action. Bravo. Et pour cela, je crois que le message de conclusion du grand hospitalier de l'Ordre de Malte devrait nous ouvrir quelques perspectives. Merci encore à tous et à toutes de cette très vivante pratique.
Donnez-moi le micro, je vais le... Je vais vous installer le micro, ce sera beaucoup.
Alors, il me semblerait que je sois équipé. Excellences, mesdames, messieurs, c'est toujours très difficile d'être le dernier. D'autant plus que tout a été très bien dit, très bien exprimé. Et après, suivre mon confrère Michel, c'est toujours assez compliqué.
Non.
Je crois que c'est un moment extraordinaire de se retrouver ici ensemble. Et je voudrais vous remercier d'être venus si nombreux, de loin ou de près, pour partager notre souci pour ce fléau méconnu de notre temps, qui est la traite des personnes humaines. Mes remerciements s'adressent tout particulièrement à l'Ordre de Malte-France, à nos invités du Nigéria et de l'IFRI qui nous accueillent, ainsi que tous ceux, en tant que panélistes, sont venus exprimer le quotidien de ce qui est vécu par ces personnes victimes de cette traite. Je vous remercie aussi personnellement pour vos témoignages d'une réalité trop souvent méconnue et de nous avoir tous, autorités et société civile, interpellés sur notre responsabilité à venir en aide aux quelques 40 millions de personnes victimes de la traite humaine dans le monde, où chaque victime nécessite tant d'attention individuelle pour leur venir en aide. Aujourd'hui, nous avons surtout parlé des femmes exploitées comme esclaves sexuelles. Mais nous ne devons pas oublier les dizaines de millions de personnes victimes d'autres formes contemporaines d'esclavage. Merci encore pour tous vos témoignages de ce que vous vivez au quotidien. Notre engagement doit se déployer en profondeur, dans l'espace et dans le temps, dans les pays d'origine, de transit et de destination. Chacun dans le cadre de nos mandats et compétences pour prévenir, protéger et réhabiliter. Et quand cela est nécessaire, poursuivre devant les tribunaux nationaux et internationaux. Nous sommes bien sûr à votre disposition pour partager notre expérience, mais aussi nous sommes à l'écoute de vos expériences pour trouver les meilleures synergies. Un aspect important, tant dans la prévention, la protection, et que dans la réhabilitation et la formation qui doit aller main dans la main avec l'éducation éthique. Il ne suffit pas d'apprendre un métier. il faut encore développer l'amour et le respect de soi-même, de sa maisonnée, de sa famille, de ses proches, ainsi que de la société. Par la formation, l'éducation et la prise de conscience des dirigeants et des populations, nous pourrons ensemble promouvoir et mettre en œuvre un développement durable pour faire face aux causes et aux conséquences de l'esclavage moderne. Mais si nous voulons réussir, il nous faut aussi soulager les victimes de tant de traumatismes subis et qui fragilisent tout avenir. Cet important symposium auquel vous avez participé ne doit être que le début d'un engagement commun et d'une action partagée visant à combattre cette tragédie. Dans ma fonction de grand hospitalier, je me félicite des échanges formels et informels que ce symposium a permis. Et nous avons déjà hier travaillé ensemble au sein de l'Ordre de Malte dans ses différentes composantes, puisqu'il y avait des représentants d'Italie, d'Autriche, d'Allemagne et bien sûr de France. Il est certain qu'aucun gouvernement, aucune organisation internationale, aucune organisation humanitaire ne peut faire face seule à la réapparition et la croissance de ce fléau qui est la traite et les autres formes d'esclavage. Nous devons partager nos préoccupations, nos bonnes pratiques, nos méthodes d'action. Et même si elles sont différentes, essayons de les rendre complémentaires. Et ensemble, mettre hors de nuire ces trafiquants et de combattre ainsi la corruption et les flux financiers illégaux. L'Ordre de Malte va continuer et renforcer son action en faveur des femmes et des autres victimes de la traite, comme aussi ses efforts de plaidoyer, de diplomatie humanitaire et d'action avec ses partenaires, y compris l'Union européenne et les gouvernements des États membres, des organisations internationales, universelles, régionales, sous-régionales, etc. Nous sommes ouverts à l'idée de répéter à une date et un lieu à déterminer une telle plateforme de dialogue pour maintenir l'attention sur cette question, car l'approche doit se faire dans la durée, à tous les niveaux. Nous devons en effet développer nos échanges et adapter nos efforts à l'évolution des besoins des victimes. Le 2 décembre prochain marquera le 5e anniversaire de l'appel interreligieux contre l'esclavage contemporain. Nous voudrions affirmer cet appel et appeler à la mobilisation toutes les communautés, comme vous-même, Sœur, et la communauté de Saint-Louis, pour la libération des esclaves de notre temps. Mais c'est un défi qui s'adresse à nous tous. Et si je devais proposer une action commune, je proposerais que la lutte contre la traite des personnes, l'esclavagisme d'aujourd'hui, devienne une priorité gouvernementale et intergouvernementale. Il en va de la dignité de la personne. Merci beaucoup.
Après tous ces mots, je vous propose qu'on puisse, pour ceux qui le peuvent, continuer de discuter sur tous les échanges qu'il y a eu depuis ce matin. Alors, vous avez à la sortie, pour ceux qui n'ont pas la plaquette, avec à l'intérieur le plan pour arriver à l'Ordre de Malte où se passe le déjeuner. C'est à quelques minutes d'ici à pied. Je ne vous explique pas, vous sortez, vous suivez le plan et il y aura des personnes qui vous inviteront. Merci à tous.
Merci. Voilà. Merci.
Comment on stoppe ça?
Ah oui. Non, mais...
Ouais. Mais oui. Non, ils ont discuté avec une association à la pause. Ouais. Et ils étaient